Welcome back here to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. Danny Cahala, Brian Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Joining us now, the MLB All-Star himself, 1984 World Series champion. You find him all over your television sets on Bally Sports Detroit. Our good friend, Dan Petry, a.k.a. Peaches. Mr. Petry, my friend, good morning to you. Happy opening day. How are you? How's life? How are things, partner?
Well, everything's okay, and especially in opening day. It's not quite the home opener, but anytime you're talking about opening day and when the bell rings, in other words, it's always an exciting day. I was just down in spring training, and, you know, it's fun to see a couple of games in spring training just to get the action underway, but nothing like when they actually count. And even though they're in Tampa Bay, it's going to be, just an exciting day, and hopefully Tigers come out on top and win.
You know, before we get into this team itself, I first have to ask you, about the changes in the game, right? And there are a lot of them. The shift is going to play a massive role. This whole pitch clock, working in AAA, we got a pretty good taste of what it was like a couple of years ago. And now all of a sudden it has made its way all the way up to the major leagues. I wanted to get your thoughts from your perspective as a pitcher. Would this have affected you? And what kind of effect do you think it's going to have on the game, positively or negatively?
Well, first of all, I don't think it would have affected me at all. I just think back in, our day when we were playing in our era that the games were a lot faster, and I think we just were used to it. But, there were times where if you got into a jam, a couple runners on, that you might want to take that little walk around the mound and, 10 seconds or so just to regather yourself. Well, you're not afforded any time to do something like that. So that's about the only difference that I could see where it would have affected me. But overall, the overall pace was pretty quick, I think, when I was out there pitching. But if you have not seen a major league game yet with the pitch clock, if you missed it in spring training, you're going to be shocked at what you're going to see. I mean, it is drastically improved the game. I love it personally. I mean, there were times where, especially in the postseason, where it almost became unwatchable, and it shouldn't be that way. On life's biggest moments, and the biggest stages, and you've got two of the biggest combatants and stars going up against one another, or two of the best teams playing one another. It's just would drag on and on and on. Now, when you're playing the game, it doesn't bother you because you're physically engaged in those moments. But I mean, if you're a fan at the ballpark or sitting at home, it gets hard sometimes. And this, I think, has accomplished everything that Major League Baseball wants to do. It's cut down the games by like 26 minutes. It's improved, the action, so the dead time in between pitches or action of a certain play. They've gotten rid of all that dead time. So it's just everything that they've wanted. The stolen bases are up, because there's less disengagement. The bases are bigger, so they're a little bit closer. So everything that they've wanted to do, the shifts, with outlawing the shifts, has now opened up a lot more holes. You've seen scores in spring training, 10-9, 9-8, at 2 hours and 40 minutes, where that would have taken 3.5 hours normally to play something like that. So I encourage everybody to get out and watch it. And when you see how much it's affected the game, you're going to be shocked. And hopefully everybody does enjoy it. But Major League Baseball, I think, is going to get what they set out to accomplish.
And I hope that there's no real, big controversy surrounding it, right? And I think that
you're right.
When we start looking at, balls and strikes and, penalizing somebody in the batter's box, penalizing a pitcher, as long as that we can kind of stay away from that and everybody's, well within the parameters and we just tighten things up a little bit, I think that umpires, as the season goes on, they sent out the memo. I don't want to say they'll be a little bit more lax on it, but I think that, as long as everybody's in good faith to keep the game moving, I think it's a huge positive for the game itself. You mentioned the word stolen bases, and in relation to the shift, how you think this is going to affect offenses now with more balls being put in play. I mean, the Tigers were a team that only stole 47 bags all season last year. I would expect that the base running might be a little bit more aggressive, not only from this organization, but from every organization across the league.
Well, in spring training, the stolen base attempts were way up, but that could have something to do with the teams trying to figure out, okay, what really can we get away with? Are the pitchers now so conscious of how quickly they have to get on the mound, make a decision on what pitch they want to throw? They're concentrating so hard on focusing on the batter that they've forgotten about the runner over at first base. So, let's see what we can get away with. When the bell rings and you've got, there's a different caliber pitcher out there, saying, a veteran out there, they're not going to be so easy to run on. So we'll see how much it affects it. Where it might affect things, though, because of the shift in the positioning, it might get back into where putting runners in motion and just hitting and running a little bit more, opening up a hole for somebody, that's good and can control the bat. So again, it's creating action and excitement. And if they don't put the ball in play, if it's way outside the strike zone or something like that, and you get a stolen base, well, that's an exciting play also. But to me, that's one of the most demoralizing. When you're a pitcher and somebody successfully hits and runs on you, it's demoralizing. And when it happens to the opposition, when you can pull it off, you can just see them go, oh my gosh, what a great play. So I think, we could see something like that, but the big thing is it's meant to create action.
Dan, when you're watching spring training and we look at this Tigers team from 2022, that it's 66 and 96. The team as a whole had a batting average of 231, which is tied for the lowest average in franchise history. You have to go all the way back to 1904 to find where the Tigers then hit 231. Did you see an improvement, and do you think that this improvement more in their approach in the batter's box, or is it more just based on, guys got to find better pitches, to try to make contact on? We saw Javi Baez. I had really high expectations for him. I love the way he plays the game. Very exciting. He struggled at the plate. I wonder if his struggles at the plate started to affect, your offense. Never let your offense affect your defense, right? If that, kind of weighed on him a little bit in his fielding and some of his throws and whatnot, and that might be going way too far down the beaten path and in the rabbit hole. But did you see an improvement with this team as a whole at the dish?
Well, I think that the memo is out, is that, Scott Harris's MO, that's what he wants. And he went out and acquired players that can control the strike zone, where they have a high walk rate, low strikeout rate, where they're going to put the ball in play. And he also got rid of several players that were the opposite. They had a high strikeout rate and a low walk rate. A lot of ones that, players that, some were kind of scratching their head like, hey, he was pretty good. So, the current players know that is the type of hitter that they're trying to get. Now it's up to the hitting group, the three hitting coaches now, where you're used to maybe one or two. Now there's a group of three that's up to them now to get inside those people's heads and determine or teach them how to better, I guess, go in and know what the opposition is trying to do to them. So, hey, if you think that you can't hit this pitch on the outside part of the plate, why are you swinging at it then? So if they're going to continue pitching you outside, don't swing at it. Wait until you get something on the inner side, inner part of the plate. So it's about what the players and how they're going to be teaching and who they acquired to get what Scott Harris's message has been. And that we saw what the Guardians did with it last year about low strikeout rates, putting the ball in play, and with a very, very young team, and they ended up winning the American League Central.
With new GM Scott Harris at the helm here, Dan, there wasn't a whole lot of noise made this offseason, right? They didn't do really anything from a free agent standpoint. They didn't sign a free agent position player to a major league contract. They did try to move a couple of pieces on some trades. They did some non-guaranteed deals. A bulk of their free agent budget went into, starting pitching and trying to get things, squared away if they can. Instead, they try to give some of their younger hitters a chance to showcase, to kind of evaluate. So if we look at this 2023 season from the 30,000-foot view, and we're looking at Scott Harris do we kind of, I don't want to say write this year off because everybody's playing for somebody or for something, but from a fan perspective, we almost have to kind of sit back to see what Scott Harris sees and how he evaluates this team to, I guess, maybe restart this rebuild.
Yeah, I don't know if as Tiger fans we fully know what to expect. We certainly know that we expect it to be better than last year, but you've got a lot of pieces. You've got Scope, Baez, and Meadows, all had not typical years that they've had, like the back of their card says, throughout their career of what they're going to do at the plate. You're banking on them to rebound. You got Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, who you got to believe are going to continue. Riley Green's going to continue his development. Spencer Torkelson's going to play more like the 1-1 that he was just a couple of years ago and get back to mashing the ball and hitting a lot of home runs. The two pieces that they acquired from the Phillies, Maton and Br0's, we knew what they were to the Phillies, and those were hard pieces for them to give up. So, that was acquired in a trade. So with all those things going and they start to overachieve a little bit or continue to develop, all of a sudden you've got a lineup there that, hey, isn't so bad. So I think it's just one of those things about, okay, what are they going to do? Let's give it some time to see how they're going to come out of this. But Scott Harris, not saying that he didn't really do anything. I think one of the things he was hired so late in the year that he didn't want to just start making moves without really being able to sit and evaluate exactly what he had at the major league level, exactly what he had in the minor league level before he started going out and doing some wheeling and dealing and changes. But what he did do was kind of gut the house as far as the scouting department is concerned, what kind of player they're looking for. So that's kind of where I think they started the rebuild was this is the direction we're going in. This is how I see it. This is the kind of player that I want to get. I want to keep them here once we get them and develop them once we do draft them, trade for them, or sign them as free agents. So, there weren't the big splashes that were made, but I think there was a lot of things done behind the scene to start that Scott Harris era and hopefully develop a lot quicker than all of us maybe expected to take.
And you know how sports fans are, Dan. You know how they are.
I don't blame it. I don't blame them.
They want those big splashes. I mean, we got people calling it. They want Lamar Jackson, Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook, Carlos Correa. They want every name that you can find in a jersey. They want it all. So take me into, from your perspective, right, as somebody who has lived this and done this out there on the diamond for years and years. Now in your role with Bally Sports Detroit, looking at this season 2023, what gets you excited to go to the park? And, because I don't think Tigers fans have really lofty expectations. I don't think anybody, thinks that we're going to, be out there and challenging, the Yankees to win the AL or something crazy like that. But what would you advise Tigers fans to look for when they turn on the television?
Well, I think that the rotation, and I just knock on wood, I think on paper the rotation doesn't look as looks pretty good. Lorenzen got nicked up there at the end of spring training. Hopefully he's not out a long period of time. But that starting rotation can keep you in a ball game long enough, and hopefully that bullpen, which was the strength last year, you turn it over to the bullpen, you're going to be in a lot of games, and hopefully you can win those. But as far as the thing for Tiger fans is, and for me as a Tiger fan, and what I'm looking for, again, is that continued development of guys like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. I mean, that Spencer Torkelson had a lot going on last year, and I think we're probably going to see the real Spencer Torkelson, and you have to believe that that's going to happen. And you have to count on that happening if you're a Tiger fan. But the continued development of guys like Joey Wentz, you got Spencer Turnbull coming back. That was a guy that a month prior to when he was out with Tommy John threw a no hitter. I think his ERA was 2.81 when he went down. So there's a lot of things that you're kind of okay. It's kind of held together maybe by a Band-Aid a little bit here and there. The starting pitchers didn't give you a lot of innings and everything, but it's the continued development, and a lot of these players can't continue to have the years that they had last year, and they're going to play more like the players that we really thought we were getting when they came over here. That's what's got me excited going into this year.
I love that, and we have to mention the big guy, Miguel Cabrera, right? The swan song for him. This is it, the victory lap, if you will, the final season for him. When this year is said and done, no matter what happens, and hopefully it's a year that he looks back at fondly for his last year of Major League Baseball. What do you think, and what do you think, and what will you tell people about what you saw from Miguel Cabrera throughout his tenure with Detroit?
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree more. I hope he just has a wonderful year because of, just what he's meant to Detroit, to this organization, to baseball, and just how great he's been. And what I think back and what I remember is how fortunate, this is my 5th year with Bally's, but, all those years before, being fortunate enough to work on TV, just watching his career, watching how great he was, how lucky I was to have him playing in my city and being able to watch him on a consistent and everyday basis, as opposed to, some of the other greatest players where you only get to see them occasionally when they stop by your home ballpark. And, just to be able to say, I saw one of the greatest on an everyday basis for how many years has it been? 14 or 15 years that Miguel Cabrera has been in this in this city. That's what I feel very fortunate about for me as a baseball fan.
He is Dan Petry. He is the pride of El Dorado High School out there in California, and he's on Bally Sports Detroit. Pre-game and post-game, you're going to see him all over the television sets for Tigers games all season long. Dan, my friend, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Looking forward to a fun day. It's opening day. It's like Christmas Day for baseball fans everywhere. Have a wonderful game day today. Enjoy the game, and we'll touch base soon, my friend.
You got it, Anthony, and I'm very lucky to be around, and I just love every minute of working those pre and posts with the wonderful host of Bally's have.
Love it. Love Peaches. He's great. The pitch clock isn't affecting him. That guy, he worked fast. He's not worried about a pitch clock. But I do like the support there of somebody who has done this at the highest level, a World Series champion from a different era, who supports the pitch clock and trying to keep the game moving as quickly as possible.